Hello there and welcome to another BoBeats synthesizer review, and today we actually have a double review because we're checking out not just one but two new products from Cre8audio. This here is the Boom Chick. It's an analog 5-voice drum machine with a deep and pretty intuitive sequencer, and it sounds something like this. And this here is the assembler. It is an analog mixer, 10 channel, and it has a really nifty function with a 20x boost, which lets you drive the signal pretty hard and distort it in a kind of beautiful way. It adds a lot of character to the sound. I actually personally really like this one. Now, both of these units are made in collaboration with Pittsburgh Modular Synthesizers, and they were sent over to me by Cre8audio so I could make this video for you all. And in today's video, we are gonna start by exploring the drum machine. We're gonna deep dive into the sound and also how the sequencer works. And after that, we're gonna do a walkthrough of the mixer, what it sounds like, what it can do, and kind of how you use it. And at the very end of the video, we'll have a discussion of alternative gear to look at, because there are quite a few other mixers that could be interesting, as well as other drum machines that could be interesting. So we'll talk about that, as well as some pros and cons and some bugs that I've found. And a big thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring today's video. So if you want to upload your music to Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, and other relevant stores, check out DistroKid. It's a fast and affordable way of getting your music onto streaming services and online stores. And while you're leaving a comment, check the description of the video. I got a link there, and if you use my link to DistroKid, you get a discount and you also support the channel. I want to start by showing you how you use this drum machine. So first up, we have the drum voices here, and then we have these buttons over here, which are used to create your sequence, but also access secondary commands. You can see the red text over here. It's not that difficult to learn. I learned it pretty quickly. We have kick, snare, drum 1, drum 2, closed hi-hat, and open hi-hat. And the closed hi-hat and open hi-hat, they share the same voice. Let's play them all together. And we can mute all of them, or just mute individual ones. So here we have the kick, we have pitch, and it can get very low. And there's drive. So here it's with no drive. So let's listen to the snare. We have noise decay. So you hear more of the noise. Here's the level of the noise as well. And we can change the tone, so either brighter or darker. And then we have the hi-hat voice with pitch. We have a filter here, making it brighter, or low passing it a bit. And we have decay and level. And those controls also impact the open hi-hat. And the open hi-hat also has a length parameter. So you hold down edit, press length, and now you can increase the open hi-hat length. Then we come to drum 1 and drum 2, and these are the most advanced drum voices. We actually have a dual oscillator core here. So we have the main oscillator, which can go from a sine wave to a square wave. And then we have another oscillator here that is used for frequency modulation, which means that you can get all manner of sounds out of these drum voices. So we have the drum voice here, and if I turn down the frequency modulation, we just hear the drum oscillator here. And we have pitch for it, and we have sweep. You can either go up or down. Which means that you can make a pretty decent kick sound out of it. And if we introduce some frequency modulation with the noise waveform, you change the waveform by holding edit here. You can see here we're cycling through the waveforms here. So let's go with noise and we increase. And if we turn it all the way up, we can start making some sort of clap sound or, I don't know, percussive sound. And drum 2 is identical to drum 1. You can make all manner of sounds with it. And I want to say about the sound of this drum machine that you definitely want to process it afterwards. And that goes for most analog drum synths. They're kind of raw sounding. If you're expecting like production ready quality out of an analog drum machine, I think you're sort of barking up the wrong tree here. Something like the TR6S, for example, is definitely, it's made in a way that you can get some production ready, like already mixed sounds out of it. Whereas an analog drum machine, it's not really meant for that. It's meant to be used as a sound source, and then you take your sounds and develop them further. It's the same with many other, for example, clones of classic drum machines, and also something like the Drumbrute or Drumbrute Impact comes to mind as drum machines that need some post-processing to truly shine. First things first, we have a sequencer here. We can save different sequences. I think it's up to 64 different sequences. And we just press one of the buttons here to load an empty one. And then we are in step mode. There's also a live mode, works slightly differently from the step modes. If we're in live mode, we can trigger the different sounds here. And in step mode, we can just select a track and we can put down steps. We can increase the tempo. There is no way to visually see the tempo, so you just have to feel your way. But you can fine-tune the tempo or make fine adjustments to it. So we put down a little snare here. And then we have the open hi-hat. Then we have drum 1 and drum 2. These can be all manner of different sounds. I think I just have some sort of effect sound now. Oh no, it was a little clap. So the step sequencer is super straightforward, but there is a lot of more advanced features in here. So if we hold down edit, we access secondary commands, and now we can either change the length of the different tracks here up to 64 steps, or we can extend. So extending them, if we select all of them, or just one or two, or everyone, we can extend them, meaning that we copy the data that is on there. So let's just extend it to 64 steps. So now if we press edit, or basically exiting the menu, so use edit here to access a function, then you press edit again to exit. Now we have 64 steps, and we can cycle through. If we go to the kick here, we can cycle through page 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is very similar to the Electron way. But you can also set different lengths per track, and you can also set different clock divisions per track, meaning you can do polyrhythms on this device. And we can go into edit, length, and we press the closed hi-hat, and we turn it down from 64 steps to, say, 14. There is no, I don't think there's an accent function on this drum machine that I've found anyway. And there is also no way of recording any parameter automation into the sequencer. This is something I actually would have loved to see, but I understand this is a very analog drum machine, and usually on analog synths it's not something that is very common. But however, there is the roll and there's the chance. They also work a little bit differently if we are in live mode or in step mode. So basically in step mode, you hit roll here, and now you see the steps, and we can press a step and we can turn the knob, and you can see here that the lights change and it gives us different rolls. Go to the snare, for example, here. Go to this page here. We're still in roll mode, so we can just add a roll here. And I layered in drum 2 here as an additional kick sound. So how does chance work? Well, let's say that we want to decrease the probability of step 15 here playing. We just hit edit, roll, says chance under it, and then we press this button here and we change it. Now here we have 2 pages. So if I turn it up here, you can see we're increasing the probability. But you see here, when I turn over 12 o'clock, we start to get different conditions. Now, these are the kind of things that break my mind, at least, and I can't understand them without like having a manual clearly beside me to understand exactly what the conditions are. It's hard to remember, but there are different conditions of when a step is being played. Because I'm a little bit smooth-brained, I often just go for a percentage probability, something like this here. And we can actually go to another step here and we can change it as well. So this is actually quite fast, and we can change page while we are in this mode. So if I have, you can see they're also blinking, so we understand what's going on. We can press another one, we can change the probability, and so on. We can even change drum track. So if we, for example, go to the hi-hat track here, we have to go to page number 1, we can change the probability very quickly on the fly per step. And yeah, the sequencer is fast. It can be a little bit tricky to remember to exit the different menus. And like I said, there are 1 or 2 bugs that I'll talk about later, but overall, very fast. So what else is there? Well, we have actually humanize, swing, and quantize, and these are also per track, which is very nice. So if we want to, we can take this groove here. Fantastic. And we can press edit and human, and you can see here we're selected all of the tracks, and by turning up the value here, we're introducing some shifts to the different steps. So you can turn all the way. It starts to sound a bit like a jumbled mess, but if we just introduce a bit, sounds pretty good. And we can go to swing and edit and swing. We can introduce swing. Of course, you can do it to just one track, but also to all of them at the same time. And then we have quantize, which you can use to quantize steps that you've recorded in during live play. Now, talking about live play, there are some interesting things going on here. So there are basically two performance effects kind of here. So you can basically use roll and chance live on the fly. And as far as I understand it, it wasn't all that easy to understand from the manual, but as far as I understand it is that basically when you have steps put down, you can then trigger a roll. So if there's a step here, you can live trigger a roll on that step by just pressing down roll and the corresponding track here, and the same for chance. So it depends on what you have programmed. But before I show you the live rolls and live chances here, I'm gonna save the sequence, because you can save the sequences. You can also chain them together in a song mode. We press edit and sequence, and we press a button here, and I think it's saved. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's saved. Yeah, let's hope it is. So if I press sequence, we can select different sequences. For example, this one here. And then press sequence again, go back. And I managed to save it. Fantastic. Sometimes like the visual feedback isn't like super clear. I would love like some clear blink, like to really see when I've saved something, like a blinking of the lights here, just so I know, like get this nice sensation that yes, it's saved, it's not gonna go anywhere. There's also a copy function, so you can copy between different drum tracks, of course, not copying settings or anything, you're just copying the data. And yes, there are these patch points over here, which are, well, they're very rudimentary. Trigger inputs for the different drum sounds, and then there's outputs, so you can process the drum sounds externally. Now there's a couple of more things I want to talk about. Let's talk about live inputting rolls, chants, and also generating sequences, because you can actually use this to generate drum grooves. Now if I hold the roll button in live mode, you can see I can select or deselect the different tracks. I can also turn the knob here. And what this does is change what kind of roll we are actually triggering on the steps that we've put down already. So press play, I hold down roll, and then I press close hi-hat. Or the snare. So I can live trigger rolls on the steps that we've already programmed. And this is good because, for example, you can hold edit here, go to extend, and we can extend the sequence to 64 steps. And now I can just press play, I can press record, I can hold down a step. And I can live record these rolls into the sequencer. And the same goes for chance. So we hold down edit, press chance. So now we're in the chance mode, and here you can see the probability of a step being played. I think it's that the higher it goes, the less probability it is. At least that's what it feels like to me. So I press play. And now you can hear all the tracks are playing, and if I press close hi-hat and open hi-hat, suddenly we are not hearing every single step. So the chance function and roll function can be interesting live performance tools, but it could also be a good way to just creating a beat. Say you have your 64 steps, and instead of going in and programming probability per step, you could just So now we change the probability of playing back a step. Let's just press roll. So suddenly we have a varied little beat here. But I will be totally honest and say that while the workflow is fast, it's quite easy to understand. It's also quite deep. I am missing some sort of way of recording automation or modulating the sounds. There are no inputs here, for example, to modulate any of the parameters. And there is no way of recording parameters into the sequencers or per step locks, except for the chants and the rolls. And also you can also shift the timing per note or per step a little bit. And so, yeah, I'm kind of missing that, but overall, it's been a fun experience playing this drum machine, and I think that, yeah, it's interesting. But overall, it's been a fun experience. Now, there's one last thing that I want to touch on here with the workflow of the drum machine, and that is that you can generate sequences. So put down a few steps here, press edit, go to number 10 here, generate sequence. I'm gonna deselect everything but drum 1, drum 2, the closed hi-hat and open hi-hat. And now we're setting the complexity here of the generated sequence. I think I'm supposed to press number 10 here. We go out and I could very quickly just go to a new sequence, press edit, generate sequence, select the complexity, so lower complexity, higher complexity. I mean, off we go. And I think what I like with it is that I can get an idea started and change a few things. Now, before we take a look at the assembler mixer, and yeah, it's definitely worth taking a look at it, I think it's pretty cool, we'll have a little word here from today's sponsor, DistroKid. Releasing your music shouldn't be difficult, and using DistroKid is super easy and is a fast and reliable way of getting your tracks onto Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, and other relevant stores. And one thing that I really like is that you pay once a year and then you can upload unlimited amounts of music. One feature that I really like is the hyperfollow feature. So when you've uploaded your music, you get a custom page. DistroKid does this automatically. On that page are links to where people can find your music in different stores. You can just share that one link instead of sharing like multiple links to different stores. So it's just a place where everything's gathered. So if you want to go and check out DistroKid, use my link in the description. You not only support my channel, but you also get a discount. So go and check it out. So we've talked about the drum machine, now let's talk about the mixer. So what is there to say about it? Well, first up, it's an analog mixer, so it will add some character to the sound, and it also has a very nice gain boost that you can enable or disable per track, which is a 20x gain, which is basically like having overdrive on every single channel. You can really crank it up. And what I did first was I took the Minilogue and I just ran it through it to see kind of what it could do with the Minilogue, because the Minilogue is notoriously weak when it comes to bass, and well, the results, they are surprising. So even though it's a very exaggerated example, you can hear that the mixer here adds a ton of grit and analog warmth to the sound of the Minilogue, which I thought was nice. Now let's go over what the mixer can do, what it's about. As you can see, the mixer uses mini jacks. There are no big jacks here on the back, for example. And you have 10 mono inputs, and 4 of them are on these 2 tracks here. And you can mute and unmute the tracks here. There's also 3 mono aux sends and 2 aux returns that are stereo, as well as a mono return for aux number 3. And I've just made a temporary wonky setup with my massive pedal board here, which is completely modular. I have a video on that. And I have hooked up 2 aux sends into it and 2 stereo returns. And I thought I'd just play a bit on the Minilogue to show you what it sounds like. So here we have the dry Minilogue sound. And I'm gonna add some reverb. delay. And I am boosting the signal of the mini log because I think it just sounds lovely with that additional boost. So basically you have this gain button here and you can just toggle it on and off per channel. Lovely. And if we take a look at channels 1 and 2, you can see here that they are more advanced than the others. We have the mute switches here. We have the panning for the other ones as well. And we also have aux 1 send and aux 2 and 3. Use this button over here to select which one you're affecting, 2 or 3. And then you have high and low EQ for these 2 channels, and they do sound pretty good. And then over here it starts getting a little bit confusing because here we have 7 and 8 level over here, as well as the 7 and 8 aux send over here. And then you have 9 and 10 level over here, as well as 9 and 10 aux send over here. It can feel a little confusing and it's a bit cramped, but that's also the trade-off when you want something this tiny, but still a ton of inputs and outputs. And then we have aux 1 here return, so you can basically set the level, and aux 2 return, aux 3 return, and of course you could just use these as additional inputs as well, just inputting whatever you want and controlling the level here. But of course then you can't be sending it to any other effects. We also have the ability with this button here to select which tracks we want to send to the headphones Q mix. So we can remove the mini log and we turn down the effect sends, and you can hear nothing is getting to the headphones output. I'm actually recording from the headphones at the moment, and we send it to the headphones Q mix. And in terms of usability, the knobs are not that tightly packed together, but of course if you have big hands, I have pretty small hands, it could be a problem for you. And just to give you an idea of the gain boost and kind of what it does, I'm gonna try and level match this beat here and then use the gain boost function to drive the signal. So we've come to the end of the video and let's talk about alternatives. Let's start with the drum machine. If you want more production-ready sounds, TR6S, for example, is a good option. And if you want something that allows for even more sound experimentation, but still on a budget and being portable, maybe a Volca Drum could be an option. And then we have the Arturia Drumbrute Impact. It comes to mind because it's analog, just like the Boom Chick. It's larger, has more voices, has some different sound design options. Maybe you could say it's comparable at least, but the sequencer on the Impact is not as deep as the sequencer on the Boom Chick. But I would say that the sequencer is perhaps a little bit more jam friendly on the Impact over the Boom Chick. So those are some drum machines that you can check out. Now, if we're talking about the mixer, the biggest competitor, and it's not because it's super similar, but it's because it's super feature packed, it's the Zoom LiveTrak L6. It's not analog, so it won't color the sound in the same way that the assembler does. And the L6 is by far the most versatile of the two because it has the XLR combo jacks, for example, so you can have a mic input, and it has built-in effects. And the assembler mixer, on the other hand, offers a lot of character to the sound and perhaps a little bit more straightforward of an interface. It's a lot quicker to use, I think. And if you want a lot of character, but you're okay with having like a really small mixer that is also battery powered, then actually I think that the Bastl Bestie is a fun option. It's not really like comparable in terms of like being a full mixer. It doesn't have, for example, aux sends, but it's a fun budget mixer that colors the sound in a nice way. And yeah, I actually use it quite a bit. I use it for my live synth meetups as a little stage mixer for a couple of synths into it, and it colors the sound pretty nicely. And yeah, I think that this will actually be my new go-to like stage mixer for my live synth meetups because it's so compact and easy to use. Now let's talk some pros and cons for both of these devices. On the drum machine, I think that my biggest gripe with it is that the kick is big and boomy and you can go very low in terms of pitch, but it's limited in sound design options. I often find myself layering it with drum 1 or 2 or just using drum 1 or 2 to create the kick sound to get the sound that I want. And it's because the kick sound here, the kick voice, is not very transient rich, and the lack of a pitch envelope is something I miss a lot. Another thing I want to talk about on both of these devices is the very hot audio outputs. The main audio outs are very hot, and it's because it's designed with URAC in mind, so it needs a hotter signal. But you can use the headphones output, and yeah, overall it's not a big problem, but sometimes, especially on the mixer, I would have loved it if the main audio outs wasn't that hot. A big plus for both units is the ease of use. They don't take a lot of time to learn, and they are very immediate to use. I can see that they're going for something that you can have in the studio as well as on the stage. A negative on the drum machine is that you can't actually see the BPM. That can be a little bit frustrating sometimes. Even on the Drumbrute Impact you can see it. So yeah, that's something I'm at least missing. Another thing that I'm really missing is some sort of parameter locking. For example, locking the pitch to different steps, so you can have the kick go up and down in pitch over a pattern, for example. That would have been really cool. And in terms of sound design, being able to lock the values of the different knobs here to different steps is just huge for making cool sequences. This is where something like even the Volca Drum is very cool, because you can actually lock the sound parameters per step. And I understand why it's not there. It's not a very common thing on an analog drum machine. So yeah, I mean, it's more something I love. I don't want to fault the device too much for it, but yeah, it would have been really cool if you could do that. But something they could have changed is the patch points. So they just relate to triggering the drum sound or getting the sound out of the device. But I would have loved like some modulation input here, for example. Some way of modulating, say, the FM pitch of the drum 1 and drum 2, for example. I don't know. I mean, just having some way of modulating the sound on the device would have been great using the patch points. And when we're talking about the mixer, I would have loved some sort of CV control over the panning, for example, or maybe the level, or maybe the level of the aux or something. Just having that would have made it even better. But I do understand that with these sort of more budget-friendly devices, you know, you can't put everything in there. The price will skyrocket very quickly, and there's also not a lot of space on there. So I get it, but you know, I can wish at least. And while I was using the drum machine, I found a potential bug, and that is that when I switch sequences or erase a sequence, sometimes if I am on page, say 2, 3, or 4, I stay there. So even though that the new sequence or the erased sequence doesn't have more than 16 steps, I am still on page 2 or 3 or 4. And since I can put down steps in the sequencer, but the page isn't active, so I press play and nothing happens, and I don't even see the movement because I'm on a page that you aren't going to. It can be a little confusing, but to me it's more intuitive that if you erase a page, you jump to the next page that is active, if that makes sense. So those were all my thoughts about these two devices. As always, let me know down in the comments what you think about them, and go and check out today's sponsor, DistroKid.